Welcome back to the program. Now, there is someone sitting at this table tonight who wants to get rid of the Sydney Harbour Bridge. I kid you not. They are serious about it, and we'll explore that in just a moment. But before we get to that, I'd clean up a few things politically still this week. More polls showing that Kevin Rudd's done well in his first few weeks back, 50-50. He's way ahead as preferred Prime Minister. Is this a worry for Tony Abbott, do you think, and for the Liberals, Sussan Ley?
Look, I don't think so, and we're not worried because we always knew that Kevin would come back, or there was a fair chance that he would. And I think Australians also know that it is the same government, and however many times the Labor Party recycles the leader at the top of the tree, it's the same rotten bunch underneath. I don't mean that personally to Stephen, he's a nice person. But the processes are rotten, the architecture is rotten, the public policy is a disaster.
If it's so rotten and disastrous, then why are things 50-50 on a party level, and why is Kevin Rudd so far in front? Are voters mugs?
Look, I don't know, because I think there's a bit of an over-polling sense in the country at the moment, and I'm not sure that people are answering polls exactly how they would vote.
So the polls aren't right?
No, I'm not saying the polls aren't right. I'm saying I don't know. I'm saying I don't know, and the most important thing for us is to keep doing what we're doing, which is make our case to the Australian people. We never said it would be easy. We never said this would be an easy election to win. It's really difficult to take government from opposition, and we're all working very hard to do that. And I know this sounds like a cliche, but I have never taken this for granted, and I'll do whatever I can, come whatever date the election is, to help get the party that means so much to me across the line.
Lachie, do you think Tony Abbott needs to change anything, or should he stick with what have been his strengths?
No, I think there's no doubt that I've been quite surprised at how well Rudd has done and how badly Abbott has done in reaction to it. I think Abbott started this year very strongly. I was quite critical of Abbott in 2010. I thought he should have won I thought anyone should have won that election effectively. Labor was pretty much in chaos. I thought he came out of the summer break a different opposition leader. I thought he was going incredibly well, but I think he's really struggled with the return of Rudd. And I think it's because Ross mentioned about the opposition leader stuff. Rudd is using tactics. He's effectively using the tactics that opposition leaders often use, and upsetting and changing the cycle and the daily story and the frame of a lot of these debates, whether it's calling on debates and all this sort of stuff. And Abbott just hasn't had to react to that under Gillard. The political momentum was right where he wanted it, and he just had to ride that momentum. And he has in the past, don't get me wrong. Abbott in 2009 and 2010 did that, but he has not been able to do it since Rudd has returned. And I think if he wasn't to recover, and I think he will, he's a very experienced and kind of quite formidable opposition leader at times. I think he will, but if he was to not significantly improve, he won't win the election. Now, I think, that's a big if he doesn't improve, because most people do learn about their competitors and react.
But the momentum is with Kevin Rudd, there's no doubt about that. Ross Cameron, do you think Tony Abbott needs to change anything in his approach?
Well, I will be frank about the fact that I am not just a coalition supporter. I am a Tony Abbott supporter. I think Tony Abbott will be a good Prime Minister. And I do think there is a sense in which the discipline of the campaign sort of hollows out a disciplined leader of the opposition in terms of personality. And so there's this strata of the bloke's personality which I like about him, which is a sort of a self-deprecating, which is funny, which is...
Do you think that comes across?
No, I think that it's almost like a frequency that gets lost in the intensity of a campaign where you can't make a mistake.
Overcome that?
Well, look, I don't necessarily want to go in there and start saying, look, on the betting markets today, Tony Abbott is $1.40 and Kevin Rudd is $3.40. Okay, so I don't think anyone should imagine that
he's still the favourite.
He is, and in fact, the market since we've had, frankly, the last tragedy of 3 more people drowning, then combined with this decision in relation to the novated leases, there has been movement on the betting markets even further towards Abbott. So the momentum, I think it's possible that the novated lease decision may be the high watermark of the Rudd administration, because it is going to the worker in the middle who's toiling away, paying tolls, getting stuck in queues, trying to get across the Harbour Bridge, you know, trying to pay a mortgage, and that guy's just getting whacked. And that's a shock.
I guess that the Liberal thinking seems to be that people will remember what Kevin Rudd was like. They'll wake up to him eventually, whether there's time before the election or not, depends on when that is, I suppose, and what happens. But Stephen Jones, do you see that as a risk that people will get annoyed with Kevin Rudd at some point?
Yeah, a couple of things. That guy on the Harbour Bridge is paying lower interest rates now on his mortgage than he has ever paid. He's just received 3 tax cuts under this government. He'll be keeping the household assistance package.
Which is all, I'm sure,
and the
talking
polls,
points which you don't have in front of you. But
yeah, and I don't use them. Can I talk about the polls? I think they say nothing more than this: that Australians want a contest in 2013. They want a real political contest, and it's game on. I think we are the underdogs. I agree with Ross. I think we are the underdogs, but I think Australians are now sitting up and listening. And I think they'll be listening to what we've got to say about our education policy versus what Sussan's saying about the education policy. They are still deeply concerned about how they're going to get broadband through their suburbs and streets and into their businesses. The point I'm making is this, Dave, we're going to be talking about the real issues instead of the personality stuff. And I think for the first time, Tony Abbott's going to be put under a bit of pressure about his policies.
Speaking about some real issues in the few minutes we've got left, you mentioned the Harbour Bridge. Ross Cameron, why should we get rid of the Sydney Harbour Bridge?
Well, I would say we should renew and replace the Sydney Harbour Bridge. A lot of people are not aware there is a road right through the central CBD of Sydney that has never been driven upon, from Napoleon Street over Sussex Street. The Department of Main Roads built this road to carry the second deck of road traffic that was to be built under the Sydney Harbour Bridge. And Bradfield, one of the greatest Australians of the last century, selected this beautiful design, which I love, in part because it had the capability when Sydney outgrew the original structure to bolt on a second deck of road and rail. Now, and
that can't happen now.
Now the RTA did an assay on the bridge in the 1990s, and they found that the rusting 80-year-old steel was no longer strong enough. Then it would have been sort of 70. It was no longer strong enough to carry the second deck. So what we have now got this ossified transport asset that can no longer do the work that span needs to do to satisfy a city which, when the bridge opened, there was 1 million people in Sydney. Today, there's 4.6 million.
And a lot of them are sitting in traffic, and you've done some numbers on what this is costing.
There's about 250,000 people a day, road and rail, use the bridge, at least, OK? If you average 15 minutes delay to each of those people, OK? The fact there's only 2 lanes on the bridge slows down the whole of the train network because they can't get bridges across that... they can't get trains across the choke point. So 250,000 people slowed down every day by 15 minutes. That's a conservative estimate. In many cases, the traffic is way back up to the Lane Cove Tunnel and past the airport because people cannot cross the bridge if there's an accident or... So now, if you just multiply, it's 62,000 hours a day of human productivity wasted.
You could use this argument, I suppose, in many cities.
But I can solve Ross's problem.
Yeah.
Just send those people on the bridge out to Western New South Wales.
There you go.
85% of Australians live 50 k's or closer to the coast. Nowhere is that more concentrated than Sydney. Come on, come out west.
Well,
there's a whole world waiting for you.
Stand up for the Sydney Harbour Bridge?
I can see Ross Cameron living large in Broken Hill.
Yeah.
Broken Hill's not ready for Ross.
You can probably get a house in Albury, 4 bedrooms for 120,000 if you don't mind an outhouse that's not connected to the sewerage. But what I want to say is, since the Industrial Revolution, since the Industrial Revolution, we discovered human beings actually quite like living with each other in cities close to hospitals and high.
But
the point is, David, I am absolutely serious about this. This is a serious decision for the city.
You're saying replace it with a replica.
Then what we do is we mint a brand new replica. Looks identical, except it carries a second deck. It's the son of Sydney Harbour Bridge.
The son of Sydney Harbour Bridge.
We manufacture it wherever. We could do it out of Australian iron ore and steel. We float it in under the bridge. We
don't make any steel anymore.
We erect approach ramps on either side, which we can do, temporary ramps. We can put them down into Lower Fort Street and Alfred Street without touching a single heritage building. We then erect the son of Sydney Harbour Bridge on a slider-bearing foundation. We then put all the
And when
traffic...
he's talking to the Indonesians about Christmas Island, he might want to throw that one in as well, I mean, frankly.
I think I might choose the NBN first.
Yeah, the NBN.
We'll have
for
to
me.
wrap it up there, but at least we've got some provocative ideas on the table tonight. Stephen Jones, Ross Cameron, Lachlan Harris, Sussan Ley, good to talk to you all. Thanks for that. Thanks for your company as well. Next week, something a little bit different. We're going to be doing a People's Forum with Tony Abbott in Launceston, northern Tasmania. That's at 6:30 Eastern Time, a special edition of The Nation coming live from Launceston as well that night. Hope you can join us then. Bye for now.